Uh, I'm Louis Kasman, and I was known as John Gotti Sr.'s adopted son and
Hmm.
best friend
Wow, that's a pretty
uh,
big title.
for approximately, I guess, since I was 20 years old. Um, he was my kid's godfather to
Wow,
three daughters. Never missed a birthday, never missed a party, never
wow,
missed a gift till the day he died in jail.
wow.
Um, and he was one hell of a man. He was a man's man.
And I want to talk about John too, but I also want to get a little bit into you. Like, not a lot of people have really heard about you that much back in those days.
Well, it was like I was on the down low at the beginning,
Okay,
and which is how we wanted to work it, and it worked. The FBI didn't know. Many of the wise guys didn't know. The
nice.
skippers in the Gambino family knew. Those
Right,
captains knew, especially Tommy Gambino, because I was in the garment center, and
Carlos' son, right?
yeah, Carlos' son.
Yeah. Mm.
And Tommy was directed by the boss to assist me in any way possible in the garment center, and he reluctantly did, but he did,
Okay.
'cause he didn't want the boss's wrath, and yeah, so that's how it started. And I originally met John through Gene Gotti, his brother, and Angelo Ruggiero, Quack Quack. That's
Oh
how
yeah,
I
quack quack. Yeah.
that's how I originally met John. When I
Wow.
refer to John, I'm referring to the
The
boss, John
senior.
John
Yeah,
Senior.
senior. Yeah, exactly. I met Gene when I was in El Reno, Oklahoma. You know how they give you the diesel therapy when you're in prison. So
Oh
I
yeah,
had a
yeah.
yeah. So I had a 2 week stop over there, and then one of the guys says, Gene's working in the laundry room over here. I said, get out of here. And I didn't know him, but I says when he came to give us the clothes, I said, hey Gene, how you doing? He goes, hey, how you doing? He says, are you from New York? I said, yeah. And he gave me a couple extra pair of underwear because you only get one pair. So he slipped a few in for us. That's the kind of guy I guess he was. But
Gene.
I'm sure you knew him better.
Oh, Jeannie. Before I got married, Jeannie and Angelo made me my bachelor party.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history there, and Jeannie and I were very, very close until John put an end to that. He John was a very possessive kind of guy. If you were his friend, and in the life, those people were in the life. I was
Okay.
in the life, but not in the life in the way a captain would be, or a skipper would be, or that type of a situation.
Would you
It,
say
you
you
know,
was like still an associate or no?
well, remember, bosses don't have anybody around them
That's
because
true.
you would be assigned to a captain. I was
That's right.
directly with the boss. I had access to him
Wow.
24/7.
Okay.
I was the only person permitted to go to his house, and
Wow.
I could go to his house whenever I wanted. And yeah, so that's how close I was with this man.
Now I was supposed to meet John Gotti when I was at MCC. We were both in the same, doing time.
Right.
Uh, and so one of the couple of the guys came downstairs. I think was it George the Greek or somebody like that? I forget exactly how it was. A couple of the guys. I think Tony Salerno's brother was there too.
Right.
But that was they said, listen, there's a lot of talk about you. I think I was on. He was on 11
Uh,
or 9.
11 South or 9
11
South.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was on 9. So they says, "Listen," he says, "a lot of people talking about you. John wants to meet you because he don't want nobody to cut his hair. Number one, they heard you can cut hair, and then
Right.
you also, you were like a funny guy." And I was like, I started getting a little nervous because I was like, I don't want to cut his hair. You know what I
I
mean?
hope you didn't cut his hair.
No. So what happened? Yeah, exactly. So what happened was the chapel got canceled that one Sunday, and so I said, okay, I'll go the next Sunday. But they
Right.
shipped me back to Otisville at that time, so I missed them.
Oh.
But I was gonna get to meet him finally for the first time, you know what I mean? Which I was like a little, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a little.
No, I have to tell you, Joe,
Yeah.
a very respectful man.
Hmm.
He No pretensions with him. You know, a lot of people, put this jacket on him because they were
Hmm.
so intimidated by him. But he was who he was. He was the real deal. If he
Hmm.
liked you, he liked you, and if he didn't like you, he didn't like you. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't a phony. He wasn't a full of shit guy. And
Yeah.
and that's he was real. He was just, he was real.
I'm glad you said that, Lewis. You know why? Because there's a lot of people out there in the street and also now on this like channels like this, and they said that John ruined the mob. And I don't really feel that way, and I'm going to tell you why. But I want to know. I want to ask you first. How do you feel about that? Because they said, "Oh, he was in the limelight," all that nonsense. But
Well,
that's to me. But I don't know how you feel about it.
let me tell you about that.
Okay.
That's not true. John was the mob. Through all those years he was out, he was the mafia. Okay. There was no stronger. And when I say ethical, that the Gambino family was an organized crime family. But I got to tell you about John Gotti Sr. When you made a deal with him, you made a deal with him. If he said to you, we're partners in this, that, and the other thing, that was it. If we made $1 and our deal was 50 cents each, that's what he took. He was no Sammy. He was not a scumbag like Sammy. Whatever the deal was, that was the deal. That's the kind of man John was. But to get back to your question, you take the John Millers of the day, that reporter, all these guys, it was the media. The media sensationalized him. They never saw a guy like him. He dressed. He was the man.
Yeah, he was sharp. He was sharp.
He was a sharp guy.
Yeah.
You could never hear a story about him out womanizing. Yeah, if we would go out, you go to Club A and all those clubs back in the day. Yeah, he wasn't a Channel 80 guy. That wasn't his thing. He liked that. He was a Manhattan guy.
Yeah.
Those people would fall all over him. Family, every crew from every family, when they heard he was at a nightclub or he was in a restaurant, you saw 200 guys coming in from every family. Genovese, Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino. He never sent for these people. They would come in. Hey, boss. Hey, chief. Hey, this. Say that. We would go on vacation in Florida. Sophia Loren, Whitney Houston.
Wow.
You name the biggest celebrities and you name the biggest families from Boston, from Florida. Well, Gambino's ran Florida. From Florida. Anyway, Rhode Island. These people, my phone would be ringing off the hook. Yo, where's this? Where's that? And of course, I would never say where he was. But everybody knew if they had to reach him, it was either Jackie Knows, D'Amico, or me.
I knew Jackie Knows. I was with him in MDC on my last pinch.
Jackie back in the day, great guy. He was a great guy. I have to say, on a personal level, he changed once he started to get elevated. But when he was around John, when he was the skipper assigned to John, he was a good guy. And me and him, that was our job. Our job 24/7 was the boss of the Gambino family.
Okay.
And you know something? That's a tough job.
Yeah,
you know what it is to handle this every day, 24/7?
Oh, yeah. That's why people get old fast in that life. I've seen
you know
guys
what?
go from black hair to white hair in 3 years.
Joe, if I had it to do over again, I'm smarter now. I would have kept the mutts away from him. Okay. Yeah. See, the one mistake is John, as the boss, he was accessible unless Jackie Knows or myself buffered it or stopped it. Otherwise, associates, made guys are supposed to go to their skippers.
That's right.
But John, his whole crew in Ozone Park and all those guys, they were accessible. He was accessible. If we had the money that he used to give to people for lawyers and doctors and whose wife is every day somebody's wife was sick and every day somebody needed money for a lawyer. Give this guy $15,000, give this guy $10,000, help this guy. Here, you remember Herbie Sperling?
Yes, I heard the name. Yes.
Okay. John never had nothing to do with Herbie Sperling, but he liked Herbie because he knew Herbie was a stand-up guy. When Herbie's wife was in trouble, Josephine, Louis, go see Josephine, give her $5,000 and make sure she has air conditioning in her apartment in New York. Wow. So I went to see Josephine. I says, here's from John. And I had the electrician there and we put air conditioning in all Josephine Sperling's apartment. That's the kind of guy he was.
And something about that reminds me of
Joe. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No. Go ahead, please.
He helped everybody. We used to have guys coming from other crews, other families, and it got to a point. He says, Louis, I used to say to him, John, do you hate money? I says, do you hate money between what we're giving the lawyers? The lawyers are good gangsters. They take the money good, cash. gift
Yeah,
cards,
yeah.
watches, jewelry, whatever you
Yeah.
could give a lawyer, they'll take.
Yep.
And I used to say, John, we can't just keep giving all this money. It's not good.
Yeah.
So if he would say, give this guy 15,000, I would give him 5,000. If he would say, give that lawyer 20,000, I would give him 10. And after a while, I would go on the visits. He'd say to me, you know, he says, we got a good thing going here. He says, I say give 20 and you'll give it 10. He says, yeah. I says, yeah, let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
let me be the bad guy. And you just, and I used to say, you know, I'll talk to the kid. I don't know why he's doing this, but it worked out good. I saved the millions.
Okay, so you put that money aside for him then.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know,
I got to make
Joe,
sure that everybody knows that you wasn't a thief.
Joe, nothing lasts forever.
No.
They could say whatever I want. Whatever they want to say,
yeah.
they could say. It's all jealousy. And if you all think that for 1 second he didn't have an accounting and I didn't make sure he had an accounting, I didn't need to take anything. He gave me whatever I wanted.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, my wedding, I'm still counting the gifts. Of course, you know, I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
I didn't have to ask. My house, I built a beautiful home in Woodbury. I was 30 years old. Yeah, my father died. He left me a lot of money, but he built that house for me. I couldn't afford that house.